It's called infinite banking for a reason.
You are listening to Wealth Talks with the McPhees. We're back in the studio this morning, and picking up where we left off last week, we want to talk about some examples of how people use their life insurance policies during their lifetime and receive all the life benefits that go with that process. So we have a number of stories today. Obviously, the names do not go with with each of these stories, but these are examples of how real people in real life have used their life insurance policies. People that we know, people
And they
that
are
we have
infinite.
helped, and they have done some amazing things using their life insurance as a foundation for other things that they're doing financially.
Well, and as we get started on this, I was thinking about just the other day, I was in someone's home and just visiting very briefly. I was standing in the kind of the entry area, and I could see they had their walls painted differently than what I would have done. And I could see from where I stood, I could see like 5 or 6 different shades of green and teal that I never would have put together. You wouldn't wear them together because they kind of clashed. And yet, what I saw on the walls and how they had decorated and, what they had on the walls, the furniture, everything, it worked. And it was really neat to see. And obviously, it was a very comfortable place for them. And I was not distressed to see these different colors, but it just kind of filled me with some awe. Now, did I come home and, make plans to paint my house all this way? No, I didn't, because I don't want to live in that. But it was interesting to see their ideas. And so today, we're going to look at some examples of what people have done that it may not thrill you to think of using a policy cash value that way. But you can appreciate their ideas and what they've done. Or it may spark an idea. Oh, I could do that. Or, oh, I wouldn't do that, but hey, I think I could do this. So that's always exciting.
And
right.
Before we get started, I think we have to be reminded of what Mr. Nash told us years ago when we started understanding the infinite banking concept. And he said, when people come and say, how much can I get out? It's just like going to the bank and saying, how much can I withdraw? It depends on how much you've put in. These people started the infinite banking concept, and they built a reservoir so that they could do the things that we're going to talk about today. This doesn't happen overnight. It's not instantaneous. This isn't a get-rich-quick scheme. It's a different way of managing money that allows you to have an infinite way of expressing how you use your money. And so with that, let's get started with some of these stories.
Well, Tom, I'm really glad you mentioned that too, because a lot of the stories we have, it doesn't really talk about, well, I had one credit card debt and I paid it off, or it doesn't.
But many of them did.
Oh, yes. It doesn't talk about those little steps. We're talking about some bigger steps today.
Certainly.
But yes, we all have to start with where we're at. The person who runs and wins a marathon didn't start doing that. They started toddling about when they were a little child, and eventually they realized, hey, they could run faster, and so that's what's happened. Now we're going to talk about some of these major things that have been done.
Yeah.
So
And even that marathon runner just won that marathon one step at a time.
That's right.
It's a process. So we're going to be looking at the big view from up above about the accomplishments that these people have done, but realize there were steps to get there. And that's what we're here to help you and coach you along those steps so that you can accomplish some of these fantastic things as well.
I'm sure we're, talking about paying off a credit card, that seems like a really small step, and many people have done that using their life insurance. They basically transfer that debt to their life insurance policy. Now they have a lower interest rate. They can pay it back over time, and they keep so much more of the interest that would have gone to the credit card company. That's a little step, but it's a big step in the right direction. And one of the bigger steps, sometimes paying off debt is a really big step for people. I'm thinking of one couple who paid off over $97,000. A lot of it was in credit card debt. Some of it was other types of debt. That becomes a much bigger step in the process, and that's kind of a big thing. when
Yeah.
you look at it that way. So a lot of people that have done debt payoff. What are some of the other things that people have done?
Well, and we're not going to mention these in any specific order. I actually started with a little notepad, a little tiny paper, and I started writing down a few things, and then I grabbed another paper, and then another, and then I had to go to a big paper, and there's not any specific order. It's just kind of how they were coming to mind.
Sure.
So
There's one that really stands out to me, and that is a client of ours who had been doing, private real estate, buying little pieces of property, renting them out, doing very, very well. But he really wanted to get into commercial real estate. And he talked to us, and another agent was trying to get him to buy a huge, large policy, a life insurance policy, which he really didn't need. And I was able to help him just realize, no, you're really good in real estate. Go do that commercial venture. And then from the commercial venture property, you'll be able to fund another whole life insurance policy. He was delighted because now he's got his private rentals and he's in commercial real estate. And, that's thinking outside the box. It's not always just another policy that you need to buy. You need to be using the money that's in your policies to do the things that you want to do with that money.
So, and then I think about the couple who the husband was working, he had his own business, and the woman was staying at home with their children while they were young. And she started fermenting some vegetables, some cabbage, and making yogurt, things like that in her home for her family so that she wanted to give them better nutrients in their food. And that was something she could do while she was home with the kids. And pretty soon, family and friends started saying, hey, would you make some for me? Can I pay you to do this? And so she said, as she looked around her kitchen, there's all these crocks everywhere where she's got all these different stages of fermenting food. And they said, why don't we see about opening up a business? So they found a place in a strip mall, and they borrowed from their policy to get the equipment they needed. They opened business. Well, that was several years ago, and I know that they have gone through at least 3 expansions that I know of. They have almost taken over this strip mall. And many doctors and even local hospital refer their patients to go to her store and buy the things that they offer. And she has expanded her line. She stills bone broth, and now they even have a place where people can eat right there. And she employs a lot of people and really has a great effect in the community, and all because she, started in her kitchen and they had some money and a policy that they could access. So I think that's an awesome story.
Yeah.
Yeah, and each time they've expanded, they've gone back to those life insurance policies and use that money for those expansions so that it's a way not to have to pay interest to someone else, but actually benefit from the interest they have to pay on loans.
So we have another story of debt payoff. It was more than $97,000. John, do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah. So this couple was actually working on a Dave Ramsey plan, and they were working on a plan to get out of debt. But so many people, when they go through a Dave Ramsey plan, they end up out of debt. But then what? What do they have? They're back at zero.
Yeah.
Something to celebrate, but it's kind of hard to celebrate with nothing. And so something that a lot of people like about using life insurance as a financial tool is they're building this foundation so they don't have nothing when they're out of debt. They've transferred that debt to their life insurance policies, and now they're building those assets. And so that was an example with a couple that we worked with. They ended up paying off. One of the loans was to the guy's father-in-law. And his father-in-law told him, well, just take it out of your inheritance. He had kind of given up on his son-in-law paying him back. Well, the son-in-law was able to pay his father-in-law back, but before he died, and so that was really special.
Yeah, and they had a huge amount of debt to pay off, and the great thing was they had a policy in place. So if anything happened, well, they had more than one policy in place, but if anything happened to either one of them during that debt payoff, instead of two of them facing debt payoff, they would not be reduced to just one person facing all that debt. So that was an awesome thing. And then after they paid off their debt, then of course they could continue to make those payments just to repay the policy what they have been paying out anyway. And for the first time, they
So
would
you're
have-
saying that the death benefit on either one of their policies would have paid their debt off if something had happened to them?
I do believe that was the case.
Yeah, so that they wouldn't have to carry that debt alone. You know, I'm thinking of the couple that stay-at-home dad who really, really, really wanted to be a pilot, a commercial pilot, and yet
Well, he just wanted to fly at first and was going to take a lesson. And then she said, where is this going?
and you know, she was making the living. He was staying home with the kids, and because of their life insurance cash values, they were able to send him to pilot school. He became a commercial pilot, fulfilling his dream. And now he feels more fulfilled, too, because he's bringing in income to the family as well. It's very, very special.
I'm thinking about I know that there have been several different people who have borrowed from their policies to pay the annual tuition for their kids to go to private school.
They save a little bit when they do that oftentimes.
they
so they
do.
pay it annually instead of monthly.
Yeah, rather than monthly. And so they pay for that tuition and then they start loan repayments to their policy so on a monthly basis so that by the time it comes time for the next year's tuition, they have it in their policy again. And someone could argue, hey, you can just do that with a bank account.
And you could.
You sure could, except that when you take your money out of the bank account, it can't earn anything. And in a policy, it continues to earn because you're actually borrowing the insurance company's money. Plus, if something happened to the parent, there's a lot of money to take care of many future educations and living expenses and all kinds of money then from the death benefit to take care of the family. So,
so
that
people,
can't be overlooked.
Yeah, people finance education that way, and obviously that's a great investment in their children in the future. People even pay their taxes that way. They pay it annual and then pay it back to the policy loan over time. And of course, that's not such an exciting example to think about, but of course that is a valid use that goes right along with this type of model.
You know, we've had clients borrow from their policies to build their dream house. We've had people that have been damaged by floodwaters. I'm thinking of one in the Pacific Northwest right now who had his entire office remodeled, updated so that there was, internet in every room and computers. New carpet, new computers, everything. And the last thing to do was the roof. The roofers came, stripped the roof off, and a rainstorm came that night and destroyed all of the remodel work.
Yeah, he said
destroyed all the electronic equipment, just devastated it. He was out of his office because he was, working with the contractor board and the carpenters union and all the things, trying to get someone to pay for this damage. And of course, he was being able to survive because of the cash values in his life insurance.
Yeah. And he also had a good friend in the area who said, hey, come in, practice in my, you can rent some space from me and that'll help you out in practice. But
it was over 6 months that he had to do that, though, while he was fighting all this. Wouldn't have been able to survive because, patients don't like to go to a different office. And it was a hiccup, but because of his cash values, it didn't devastate him.
That's right. And the emotional strain of that takes a toll on a person. And it's more difficult to earn your income and really focus on your business when you're having emotional and financial catastrophe in some areas.
And then thinking of that, I think of the person clear on the East Coast of Massachusetts who had massive snowmelt one year after they had a blizzard and their office flooded. And they had to move to a different location to practice, and it was the cash values in their life insurance, again, that saved them from just going belly up.
Yeah. You mentioned the dream home in Montana. There's a woman in California who was able to purchase her dream condo. And when I say purchase, I mean she borrowed from her life insurance to put the down payment on her condo, where she comes home from work and she goes up to her condo and she can see the sunset over the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah.
And we had the opportunity to go visit her in her condo, and just to see her face light up when the sun was starting to set. It was a beautiful sunset, but beautiful to see her face. And that wouldn't have been possible if she hadn't been able to save in her policy. And then, something that we've got to remember here too is that you don't have to pay it back immediately. So you can pay interest only loan for a while. Some people are paying it back because, they want next year's tuition to be there. But some people can, spread it out, take some
Stretch out
time.
the payments a little bit. Yeah. And that just gives you more cash flow options.
Here's another story that is just really exciting, and this happens frequently when parents or grandparents buy a policy on a child or a grandchild, and now those children are grown. I was just talking to a married daughter of one of our clients who her father bought a policy for her when she was this young. Now she's in her 20s, and when her and her husband pay the premium on that policy, now there's a 27% increase in the cash value that they can access
Above what they
paid in premium.
Cool.
What a gift that father gave to his daughter and son-in-law.
Yeah. That's a multiplier effect.
And they didn't have to build all that equity to start with because the father did it for them. And now it's, and that happens so frequently when parents think ahead like that and plan to give that blessing to their kids.
Yeah. So we've had, clients have bought their dream home, whether it's a condo overlooking the Pacific Ocean, whether it's a home in Montana. Some clients have purchased a second home, like a vacation home.
Yes. I was talking to a client just the other day. About 10 plus years ago, she bought a home in Cape Cod, a vacation home, and they love to go there. And so I was asking her about it. I said, do you get there very often? She said, well, we go there a few times a year, but I'm also using it as a rental. It's paying for itself.
Cool. Yeah. So that kind of turned into an investment, didn't it?
But the down payment came from their life insurance.
That's right.
Yeah. That's right. So people, buying their dream homes, paying for education. What about vehicles?
Oh, yeah. Okay, what comes to mind there is a couple where they bought a new vehicle. It was a van for their growing family. I don't know. I don't remember if it was brand new or if it was used, but it was new to them at least. And they decided to borrow from their policy to pay for that van. And shortly thereafter, she had a risky pregnancy and had to be on bed rest. And she had her own young children around her, but she could no longer run the daycare in her home that she was running. And the neat thing is they had that vehicle that they needed, but no one came knocking on the door saying, where's your payment? Because she wasn't working.
Yeah.
And so she had the money. I mean, they didn't have to continue with those loan repayments. They could redirect that money elsewhere. And then they knew that when she got back on her feet, after the baby had born, after she returned to work, they would be able to start making those loan repayments again. So that gave them great flexibility. I know a few years ago, though, we bought a vehicle and we didn't borrow from our policy because we could get a better interest rate with the dealership.
And
it's
it makes
crazy
sense just to keep our money in our policy, waiting for a better opportunity. in
Yes,
that case.
because another opportunity, we couldn't necessarily call up Ford Motor Company and say, hey, we've got an opportunity. Will you give us a loan, like you offered us? And so we can think about and that makes me think of the guy that didn't pay annually for his kids' tuition because he can use that money better in his business. So we always want to think about what makes the most sense.
Yeah, you mentioned that vehicle loan. That was a 0% loan that they were giving us. But of course, many of you know that 0% is not always 0% because there is financed price and there is a cash price, especially with vehicles. So we did ask what the cash price was on this vehicle too. And the interest rate on the cash price, when we figured in the increased cost with the financing, it worked out, I think it was like to 1.6 or 1.9%. Well, that was still less than the interest rate on the policy policy loan. So it still made sense to use that financing. Now, with interest rates where they are today, rising, you still want to look at that cost of financing, because the financed cost may be more than even the actual interest rate on that. And if the financed cost is over 5%, it might be worthwhile looking at your policy loan.
Absolutely.
Now, at the same time, when we bought our Kubota tractor years ago, it really truly was a 0% interest loan rate. So why pay that off with policy from your cash value when they weren't really charging you any interest at all? It made no sense.
Yeah.
If they're going to loan us their money for free, we'll take it.
Look at the numbers.
Yeah. And in our case, too, with the vehicle that we purchased, if something happened and we couldn't make those monthly payments, we could have just borrowed from our policy at that point and paid
Because you
it
have
off.
a reserve.
Right, because
good.
we have a reserve. And that reserve we didn't start with that reserve years ago. We built that reserve.
So we can talk about people that have borrowed for giving their kids braces, for families that have used it to celebrate the feasts that they like to celebrate in their religion, all the preparation and setting aside for that. We can talk about people that have used this to buy equipment in their offices. Instead of paying lease expenses to a leasing company, they direct those payments back to themselves and their policy, and actually then end up having the equipment plus the money that they bought the equipment with, where normally they would be out the cost and the interest and just have a piece of used equipment. It's just amazing the infinite ways that people have put their cash values to work.
Well, I'm thinking of another couple, too. They started off with paying off some business debt that they had.
Okay.
Some business ventures didn't really pan out like they had planned, and so they paid off those. They were able to start policies and gain capital to pay off those business debts. And then they went on to doing some remodeling. They also were able to purchase an RV and take trips and take their grandkids on trips with them. They also financed their grandchildren's education, helped with that financing.
This is kind of a story that kept growing. It kept going.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yes. But then there was a death.
Wow.
And there was a payout for that. But it didn't stop there. The story did still continue because there was death benefits for that spouse. And that spouse was able to go purchase an additional home in a warmer climate and has been able to take advantage of a very generous offer on a new vehicle that she received, not just from the dealership, but from the owner of the dealership, who understood that she was a widow, needed something reliable, especially now that she's traveling back and forth, and gave her a tremendous deal. So she was able to take advantage of that because of money either in her policy or from the death benefit that she received. So even though her husband's life ended on this earth, the legacy that he left continues to provide for her and the family.
Yeah.
Well, in a day and time where the news reports say that, 4 out of 10 people would basically starve to death because they have no money saved if they lost their job, because they're living paycheck to paycheck to paycheck. It really makes sense to be able to set aside part of what we're earning today for the future. We don't know what's coming. You might not have kids that need braces, but you don't know if a rainstorm's going to come, melt the snow, and flood your house or your business, or someone's going to plow into your front yard and crash through your front house like one of our clients did, and was able to get
Crash through their window.
get that
in the
fixed
house.
with the cash values of their policies before the insurance company finally moved and recovered those costs for them. We just never know. We have to be prepared. And the best place to keep money where it's liquid but still growing is in dividend-paying whole life insurance.
Yeah.
That is what the infinite banking concept is all about. That's why we teach the perpetual wealth code on how to use that money so it perpetuates itself, comes back so it can be used over and over and over in an infinite amount of ways.
That's right. So people, using their life insurance for everything from paying off debt to financing their everyday expenses, and then, not only is this reserve just good for emergencies, but it's also good for future opportunities and investments. We have a number of clients that use their life insurance as a way to accumulate the reserves or the cash that they're going to need for their next investment project, whether it's an investment in real estate, whether it's an investment in a typical, financial investment of some sort, or whether it's an investment in starting up a new business and purchasing the equipment that they need to go with that. The opportunities are truly limitless.
And wise money managers have, for centuries depended on the cash values in life insurance to be there for them when opportunities, emergencies, or just a vacation comes up, that they want to be able to manage money more wisely. I think that it was Warren Buffett's father that taught him when he was 11 years old that the best way to develop wealth is by using someone else's money. And of course, this is what we're able to do in life insurance because our cash values become the collateral for us to leverage the insurance company's money and use it while our money stays in the policy and continues to grow. So we get the benefit of both worlds, both of being the user of money and also the banker who gets the interest from that money and the payments back.
That's right. It's a wonderful system. It really is. And there's a message that I would like to think about as we're signing off for today. Dreams take time to build. But the difference between a dream and a goal is that a goal has a deadline and you're actually making objective steps toward that. So you're taking steps toward that, because a dream, if you don't start taking those baby steps toward it, even if it seems like a really small step today, if you don't start taking those steps, then the dream will always be a dream. But if you start taking the steps that you can, start building those reserves in your life insurance policy that will be able to finance your dreams someday, even if you can't put a date on it. If you're making steps and taking steps towards that, then you have taken a step to making your dream into a goal. You're one step closer to achieving that dream in your life.
So that reminds me of a quote, John, that I don't even know who said it, but ideas are a dime a dozen. It's the people who put them in action who are priceless.
That's really true.
And that makes me think of the old saying that don't confuse motion with action and progress.
Yeah. So start taking the steps towards your goal. If you have a big goal, you might want to be saving more today towards that goal than someone who has a little goal for the future. But whatever your dream is for the future, start taking those steps today. And to see what that's going to look like, to start planning objectively so you can get there, give us a call at 702-660-7000 and we can help you see what is a policy funded with a certain amount. What is that going to look like? Now, what is it going to look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now? What can you expect as you move forward toward your dreams?
And remember, Noah didn't start building the ark the weekend before the flood came.
He built it for years. That was a 100 years project or more, I think. Yeah.
The nice thing about whole life insurance, it doesn't take 120 years or however long Noah built the ark. But the story is you have to start today to be prepared for what can happen tomorrow, either opportunities, emergencies, or just something else that comes along.
That's right. So you are listening to Wealth Talks with the McPhees. You can reach Life Benefits here at 702-660-7000. Have a wonderful week.